let's talk about Barcelona and their incredible display that we saw today in their victory over Elche. Which individual performances would you pick out?
Oh, so many, Chris. I thought there were so many players who were really, really impressive tonight for Barcelona. Let me start by talking about one who might not be top of the list, but maybe should be. Xavi Espart, the teenage left-back, who isn't a left-back, who played tonight at left-back and did brilliantly. We saw him provide the assist for the final goal for Fermin. I thought he was brilliant, and you know, he's made a handful of appearances for the first team before, all at right-back. In pre-season, he's played at defensive midfielder, and then tonight he starts at left-back. I thought he was sensational, but obviously Raphinha and Fermin, brilliant. Anthony Gordon coming on and 2 assists in his first 5 minutes as a Barcelona player. Bernal recovering so many balls. I just thought it was a really, really excellent performance from so many individuals. Not Lamine Yamal, who was possibly the least impressive Barcelona player tonight, went off after 65 minutes. But isn't it funny, guys? We've been sitting here talking about Barcelona starting the season without a striker, and they've lost the goals from Ferran, and they've lost the goals from Lewandowski, and where are the goals going to come from? And then they win 5-0 on the opening day of the season for them. So very, very impressive for Barcelona, and actually sending out a bit of a message and perhaps giving the hierarchy maybe an idea. Maybe it's not that urgent for them to sign a striker, because if they don't bring a striker, they've got all these players that can kind of fill in. I think they will need to find a striker from between now and the end of the transfer market, but they did well finding the back of the net tonight.
Phil, you actually just linked me to my next question, which was going to be looking at all of the options, looking at the fluidity and looking at the way that they were so dangerous, especially in the final third. Do you think that kind of closes the window in terms of additions for this Barcelona squad in this window in particular?
I still think they do want to add a central striker. You know, you can't compete on 4 fronts, which is what they really want to do, and compete and go really deep in the Champions League, which is their priority, as Hansi Flick has previously said, without, I think, someone else to provide at least backup, you know. And also Raphinha did really well tonight, scored 2 goals. But if you are playing him centrally, you're losing him out on the left, where perhaps he's best. You can play Anthony Gordon there, you can play Adeyemi there. We'll see where Lamine Yamal ends up playing. So there are options, and think of PSG as an example of a team that is very good going forward, scores lots of goals without necessarily a central focal number 9 striker. So yeah, I think the idea is to try and get someone. They put all their eggs in the Julian Alvarez basket, which doesn't look like coming to fruition now. They will try and find someone between now and the end of the transfer market. But if it doesn't work out, I don't think Hansi Flick will be too desperate, too disappointed, because he knows that these 4 or 5 attacking players can provide him with what he needs in the final third.
Phil, on any other day, we'd spend a lot more time talking about some of the great individuals we saw on this Barca side, but we got to talk about Atleti and Julian Alvarez and the scenes at the Metropolitano. What did you make of them, and ultimately, what does the future hold for Alvarez and the club? Because it seems like this is untenable at this point.
It does, doesn't it? They were very loud, very, very, very loud, the whistles. When his name was read out on the PA system, it was ferocious. When he came out to warm up, the fans were chanting a chant that basically says, tell him to leave, tell him to go, tell him to get out of here. And then when he came on, he was roundly whistled any time he touched the ball or came even near the ball. And then at the end, he went off immediately down the tunnel and wasn't with the rest of the players, with the fans. So it's a very difficult situation for Julian Alvarez. The club are digging their heels in, and they're saying, we are not going to sell you to Barcelona. That is just not going to happen. And the only way that Julian Alvarez is going to reverse this situation, I think he has to accept that the Barcelona deal isn't going to happen, and he can turn it around, because players at Atletico Madrid have turned situations around before. But he needs to knuckle down, he needs to work hard, he needs to score goals, and he needs the team to win. And if all those things can happen, then he can turn it around with the fans and gradually win them back on side. But at the moment, it is pretty toxic between the Atletico Madrid fans and Julian Alvarez.
Phil, one of my favourite phrases in life is you can't look forwards and backwards at the same time. So if Julian Alvarez doesn't look backwards in terms of his tenure at Atleti, and he wants to look forward. Is Arsenal still on the table? I mean, you're hearing the rumours, and Arsenal had a convincing victory in terms of themselves, but haven't been shy about wanting to add additions in this window. Is that North London home still available for Julian Alvarez?
What we're hearing is that Julian isn't particularly interested himself in a move to Arsenal. Now, what we don't know is how that reception today will have perhaps changed his perceived desire to leave. He might just be thinking, you know what, I just need to get out of here. This is, or he might think, well, I'm just going to knuckle down and try and turn this situation around. Arsenal seemed to be the only way out for Julian, but it wasn't necessarily an escape that he was willing to pursue. Maybe now in the last week of the transfer market, given that there aren't any other options, given that Atletico Madrid just aren't going to sell him to Barcelona, will he rethink and will he say to his agent, all right, let's try and make this Arsenal deal happen? Possibly. I still think it's a long shot. It's a big long shot. I think the likely thing is that he stays at Atletico Madrid and they try and turn the situation around. But if he does leave, Arsenal would be a potential destination.
Well, if he is to stay, the mood around the fan base and around the players is going to have to change a great deal between now and the close of the window. Phil Kitchen-Mellini is our Spanish football expert. Thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure, guys.
And that is Phil with more on this one. We want to talk about a bit more about the Barcelona performance, their 5-0 win over Elche. And I think we should highlight what Fermin Lopez did in this game, because this is a player that we've talked about a little bit before the show, and this idea he wasn't quite anointed in the way that Pedri or Gavi or Lamine Yamal was, and yet this might be a bold shout, but he might be among the very best of the lot that Barcelona have produced in the last few years. He was absolutely stunning today.
It just speaks volumes about the Barcelona academy system that we speak about and get the acknowledgement and the flowers they rightfully deserve. But they continue to produce these players that are, people call them system players. I actually think they're full of individual brilliance. And I think Fermin is one of those that he will not get the sexy headlines as you talk about with the Lamine Yamal, who's now in the conversations of being the best players in the world, or the Gavis and the Pedris who have burst onto the scene and have automatically comps in terms of to Iniesta and Xavi, which are their predecessors from beforehand. But Fermin is almost a hybrid, because you can plug him anywhere, and his ability to impact the game from any position and be trusted by every head coach that he's actually been under is a very rare skill to have. But then his clinical edge in front of goal is something that he's adding to his game. You can see the hunger and the ambition to want to add goals and assists and impact his team, especially in the final third. So he's almost become like an unsung hero. But those that's myself and you who are paying attention to what Barcelona are doing every week, you're starting to see his growth, his confidence, and more importantly, his impact on this team week in, week out. And that right there is incredible value, and you can't actually put a quantity on that.
Not at all. And I think one of the other big talking points of Barcelona before the season was they lose Robert Lewandowski, they lose Ferran Torres. They bring in players who are forward players, but not like strikers in the traditional number 9 center forward role. And yet it didn't seem like they lacked that today. Do you think this is one game against the bottom half of the table team that just survived relegation last season? Or do you actually think that whether it's Raphinha or Anthony Gordon or whomever in that forward position, that they have enough to get through a whole season without that traditional number 9 profile?
I think it's a bit of both. I think you can have the excellence in terms of when you're playing in Elche, and this is all due respect to Elche, like you can go there with the attacking quartet that you have right now and trust and play that people are going to be able to fill the gap. People are going to be able to plug the holes, because we've seen in most recent times in terms of by the standard in European football and PSG that you don't necessarily need a direct number 9 in order to lead a line in modern football to cause those type of problems. Not everybody is going to be Erling Haaland, and not everybody is going to be Kylian Mbappe. You're starting to see your Ousmane Dembélés, you're starting to see your Harry Kanes, who are molding their game and shaping it in different ways. And Barcelona can kind of fit that mold. I mean, let's not get it confused though, Chris. This is still a team that has scored over 100 goals in the last, couple of seasons and made it look easy. So they've never been short of goals. But you spoke about the two quality of players that have left. Ferran Torres is someone that wanted, and as he spoke about, wanted to step into that number 9 position and wasn't given that opportunity. Robert Lewandowski's career is at the latter end of it, and let's be honest, he's going to go down as a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest strikers of a generation. So there is that gap now for someone to step into. There is that shirt, that number 9, where you want someone to go in and say, I'm going to get you 30, 40 goals within a season in a Barcelona shirt. But now, in modern football, especially with the tactics and the way that Hansi Flick and a lot of these other managers like Luis Enrique and even Mikel Arteta to an extent have kind of realised that I can distribute the goals. I can get 20 from here, I can get 25 from here, I can get 20 from over here. And it takes less pressure off in terms of teams being able to game plan for a certain individual. And what it does make, it makes your whole team very dangerous. It makes you threats in a lot of different directions and and gives you a lot of different varieties in terms of plan A, plan B, plan C, and a lot of different people that can hurt you. So it just depends on how their focus is, because you could see a number 9 quite easily go in there and dominate and become one of the best strikers in world football and own that shirt. And there is a number of number 9s, as we spoke about, Julian Alvarez, Victor Osimhen, those that could easily go into that mold and say, I'm now Barcelona's number 9, which is an honourable position to be in. Or you could see Hansi Flick win everything with the sheer factor of Raphinha, Gordon, Adeyemi, all these new names, Abdul Karim, who we saw in pre-season do really well. There is a hunger there to turn around and share the wealth. And I think they showed a lot in this performance that they don't mind sharing. I think Anthony Gordon's representation in terms of what he did with that goal showcases the characteristics and, more importantly, the culture they have within that changing room.